Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in regards to our webinar for Gearing Up for Business Uplift with Account-Based Marketing. I'd like to start off by introducing myself. I'm Michael Thompson. I'm the VP of Client Engagement here at Altudo. I'm an ABM certified representative with Demandbase, and also been a individual using account-based marketing for about 20 years throughout my sales experience. I'd also like to introduce Sean. Sean, if you'd like to talk a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, I'm Sean Van Tyne. I'm the founder of the Van Tyne Group. At the Van Tyne Group, we help companies with their customer and user experience, strategies, operations, and processes.
I appreciate you joining me today, Sean. Looking forward to presenting here about account-based marketing, and hopefully others will learn a lot about account-based marketing today. So with that, just a little bit of an understanding about what account-based marketing is in case someone hasn't really looked into it yet or just starting the journey. I've got two overviews of account-based marketing. One is about account-based marketing. It's a strategic approach to business marketing based on account awareness, in which an organization considers and communicates with individual prospects or customer accounts as markets to one. What demand-based states is that account-based marketing is a strategy used for B2B marketers to identify and target the accounts they value most. ABM solutions include account-based data and technology to help companies attract, engage, convert, and then measure progress against customers and prospects at scale. So some of the key things is obviously it's a strategic approach for B2B marketers to attract and engage companies at scale. So to start off here, we have a poll that I'd like to ask for everybody to chime in. We're just interested in understanding if you've implemented ABM in your organization yet. Obviously, yes, no, or maybe planning to implement. So the poll should be open now. And we'll just wait here for a second to get some responses. Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's going to align with some of the information that we're going to have today in regards to a mix of a majority of people are looking at ABM currently within their organization or planning to implement it. So thank you for everyone for answering that. Appreciate it. A little bit of a difference in marketing from the old school versus ABM. So in old school, really it was about number of contacts that you acquired, just trying to fill the funnel with as much in the top. Conversions from forms on landing pages, the number of email open rates, and then the total number of MQLs, no matter if they fit a particular criteria or anything like that. So it really was about casting a very wide net, collecting as much as possible, and then throwing it over to sales and seeing if it sticks. With ABM, it's really a lot different. It's about the number of total opportunities, the percentage of pipeline coming from those target accounts that you're going to create with your account-based marketing, increasing the close rates for those opportunities, increasing the average deal size on the deals that you're working with, and then increasing the funnel velocity. So from first touch to close really shortens the gap, allowing you to really understand and be able to know what your sales cycle is going to be like and what your revenue is going to be like over a shorter period of time versus the ups and downs of possibly the old school marketing. What's interesting is that the average contract value for companies that are using account-based marketing was on average 171% larger than the pre-ABM average contract value. So here's some information on it's 195,000 versus 71,000 for B2B companies. So if you can think about actually increasing your sales numbers by almost 200% on average, you're going to see that you're going to be able to meet your company's revenue targets much easier.
Sounds like you're beating your company's revenue targets.
Yes, you definitely should be beating them if you're actually be able to increase it by 171%. That'd be awesome. Some of the gains that you actually have from account-based marketing. So instead of the conflict between sales and marketing, it's really more of a collaboration. You have one goal based off your total business objectives from the top, and you're trying to reach those based off of your objectives through marketing and sales. And instead of doing that wide cast and collecting a lot of different contacts, and I call them contacts because they're really sometimes just that. They're not really leads. Really looking at the quality and trying to define that. So you'll have a lot less leads, but the quality will be so high that it'll be easy to understand and drive towards your revenue goals. And with that, you become more efficient. So with example here is with marketing, instead of going to every single conference and just trying to collect leads, you start to become much more pinpointed on the conferences that you select. The conferences are related to the industries that you're finding success in, and you're able to get more leads that are effective to your sales team. So less leads, less activities, but much more higher quality. You might be spending more on some of the conferences, but again, it's the return on investment will be much higher.
Mike,
Also,
one of the things I like about this is it's in line with things like the philosophies around lean technology and agile development, which also puts an emphasis on collaboration and efficiency and quality.
absolutely, absolutely. And then one of the things that I found also is the being more proactive versus reactive. Again, instead of just reacting and throwing as much out there, being proactive. One of the recent luncheons that I actually went to for AMA here in Raleigh, Sangram from Terminus was actually speaking. And one of the things I found very interesting is that a company has found the criteria that they find an account matches within their company. And if they do not meet that criteria, they do not react to them. So what that means is a company will come to the website, fill out a form, and if they don't meet their criteria, they don't create an action to reach out to them. Again, you're basically disqualifying opportunities that don't meet your needs and are going to be a waste of your cycles within the company. Then finally, it's about intelligence. So understanding your customer, understanding more about them instead of just their name and number, and not just looking at a lead as a lead. Today in 2019, some of the planned adoption trends for B2B marketers are listed here, and obviously ABM strategies is one of the key ones. So a lot of people are starting to hear about it. It's growing in popularity of actually being implemented, and the adoption rates are increasing. So it's a great time to actually start to understand this and implement it within your company. One statistic here that I thought stood out was mobile marketing down at 41%. And what you find is that mobile marketing is actually decreasing in adoption because more companies have already done it. So it's a declining adoption rate, whereas ABM is increasing, so more and more companies are looking into it. And with the results of account-based marketing, here are some of the statistics that we actually see is that 86% of marketers and sales professionals from B2B companies have begun using targeted account strategies. What you'll find, though, is within your company, you may have segments, but it's really about bringing the company together and having a top-down approach, making sure that the leadership is on board also. And nearly 85% of marketers are able to measure ROI, say the ABM initiatives far outperform their other marketing investments, and about 50% of them say it's significant. And then over 34% of ABM practitioners are claiming a tightly coupled relationship between sales and marketing, and the rest are reporting a progress towards it. So it's really getting rid of the barriers and walls between marketing and sales and bringing them together.
Hey, Mike, that last statistic really interests me because I want to know if you've had the same experience. I get inside companies and I usually find a disconnect between marketing and sales. And it sounds like ABM addresses that issue.
Yeah, what I would say is that in the past, sales would always sit there and say, marketers not sending me leads that are worth my time. And then marketers are saying, well, you're not telling me what you want. So really, it's about getting into a position where your goals are aligned. So marketing, if you look at marketing in the past and even a lot of companies today, they were comped based off the number of leads, and that's it. Whereas sales is comped off based off of revenue. So if they're not aligned, there's clash. And what I would like to say, I'm not sure if I can tell this really easily, but what I see is the emoji where it's the round head and the shoulders, and it's just an outline of an individual.
Yeah.
Marketing was sending that over as a lead, and what sales people are looking for is the Mona Lisa when they get the lead.
I like that.
So just an example of, I think, the conflict or disconnect, I would say, is more like it between the two groups.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And top 3 reasons to actually adopt an ABM strategy, I think we just touched on one of them, where it brings together your sales and marketing teams so that you have a cohesive understanding of what the objectives are for the company, such as revenue, sales velocity, average order size. So those are the keys that you're really driving towards. Be able to optimize your marketing resources for faster ROI, using them in a constructive way instead of being all over the place. And then building better relationships with your existing contacts and customers and personalizing those communications to them and also your potential clients. So you're really driving a one-to-one experience across all your channels. And there's certain types of ABM models. There's, one-to-many ABM, so having hundreds of accounts that you're targeted within a particular criteria that you have. So here at Altudo, we call those our focus accounts that our ISRs might have to reach out to. So it's really a one-to-many. What you're doing is you're creating more of a personalized content fit focus based off of industry and title. Then you get to one-to-few, where you might have a smaller niche of accounts, and your engagement is a little bit more personalized to those individuals. So you might be pulling in information about those individuals when you're contacting them. And then there's the one-to-one ABM, where not only do you have these really target accounts that you really feel meet your criteria, what you're doing is you're starting to create individual reach outs. So you're not thinking about 5 or 10 people when you do a marketing plan. You're thinking about the individual and how you can connect with them, or that company and how you can connect with them. And an example again from the Terminus AMA luncheon that I did was at in Raleigh. They showed where a company was actually creating a landing page for that company and then doing advertisement for them to drive the engagement.
Mike, that's really exciting. I'm going to guess there's some kind of machine learning underneath all that to be able to create those experiences.
Actually, what this company was doing, I'm sure you probably could set up some machine learning might be able to do this, but what the company was actually doing is they were creating a landing page, collecting data about that company, creating content for that company, obviously having their logo on that page for that individual page, but knowing that there might be a pain point based off of their press releases or something like that, and calling it out on that landing page and how they solve it. And what they'll do then is also create advertisements for that one company on LinkedIn, saying that when I want to actually advertise to this company, or in social or anything like that. So it's really truly a one-to-one. The company was able to create 500 landing pages like that, and their plan was to do another 750 in the year.
That's crazy, but I love it.
Then they're getting huge increase in revenues. I think their success rate of actually converting a lead when they come to a landing page was like 90%.
That is unheard of. 90%?
And so people will say that there's a lot of time that needs to be spent doing that, but obviously the outcome shows that it's worth it.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a Mitt here to do it with us. You might lose a couple gray hairs with all my asks. But here we've got another question here. So what challenges do you face as you plan your marketing activities? So choose any that apply. Could be your MARTECH stack integration, creating customer profiles and segmentation, mapping target accounts, creating targeted campaigns, or demonstrating ROI dashboards and reporting. So we'll open up the poll here and just wait a little bit to see what the answers might be. Okay, so it's spread across quite a few of them, but I definitely would say that one of the keys is actually mapping the target accounts and then creating targeted campaigns. I think that's a great first step, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on here too. So thank you, everyone. Helps if I click the right button here. So now we'll talk a little bit more about, what best fit for customers. How do you tailor-made marketing programs for your company, determining your segments within your company, understanding your ideal customer profiles, being able to craft the personas and creating a customer journey maps, and then mapping those target accounts. So I'm going to hand it over to Sean at this point and let him talk to a little bit of the information on segmentations and customer journey. Take it away, Sean.
Thanks, Mike. So the most important thing about when you're creating segments is that those segments need to be meaningful in terms of your business objective and what you want to achieve, especially financially. They need to be distinct. They need to be true segments. Otherwise, your data is going to be muddy and it'll be hard to determine action items against them. They need to be sizable. Sizable could be looked at in two ways. Sizable could be that it's a significant number of folks in that segment, or probably more importantly, it's sizable in terms of revenue opportunity, which is the way I'd want to measure it. And it must be identifiable in real life. And what I mean about that is sometimes you find folks creating a segment that just really is fictional and doesn't exist. So I encourage you to do your homework and make sure that when you create a segment that it's a real segment with a real population behind it. When we think about B2B segments in particular, there are 4 dimensions that we think about. One of the first is the behavioral dimension, how they purchase or interact with a product or service. There's attitudinal dimensions of how the product or services makes them feel or how they think about that particular brand. There is also the desire or need, what the customer wants or expects from that product and services. And this is where personas and journey maps can be very useful. And of course, the features themselves, the size, the sector, and the location. Next slide. Thanks. Again, we're really focused on this particular webinar talking about B2B. I know sometimes there's some confusions about B2B versus B2C, and I want to talk about the differences between the two. The obvious difference is business to business is looking at a target audience that is a business. It's an organization. It's an institution. They have business objectives and business goals. They have annual revenues that they want to reach. Versus B2C is focused on a consumer, people who might be buying a house or a car or a sweater or a couch. As you can see, those are very different targets, and the way that you want to target that audiences are very, very different. For example, is the motivation. A motivation of a business is around their business objectives, their sales goals, their operational efficiencies, while a consumer is more interested in, gee, does this look good with my couch? The other big difference between B2B and B2C is things like the cost of sale, the revenue, and the sales cycle is much higher and much longer. These are longer sales cycles with a lot more revenue at stake. So we're talking about people who are making decisions around millions or billions of dollars versus someone who is an individual who is looking at something of lesser value, like a car or even their new laptop. Obviously, because of that, how you're going to message that target audience is much different. As Mike has already pointed out, that for messaging to a business and to attract a business and to inform a business, the information that you share with them must be much, much more detailed and much more in depth. Again, they're making a business decision and there's a lot of revenue riding on this. And again, also the focus is much different. For a business, it's really about things like operational efficiency and their bottom line versus a consumer who you're more focused on what is the pain point that you're alleviating. Mike, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered most of it. I know that I might have something on the next slide that I think we're going to talk about.
All right, fair enough. So personas in general is a tool that we use in experience design. And we use personas to be able to better describe a group of people that share the same goals. That's the the purpose of a persona. So it's usually smaller than the segment. Sometimes it can go across segment. A buyer persona is the group of people that makes the purchase decision versus like a user persona, which is someone who is going to be using a product or service. So that's an important distinction. In particular, for a B2B persona, you're going to see the usual things that you see in a persona, like the challenges, the motivation, and things around that. But what makes a business persona different is that we also look at things like the vertical that they're in, some things around the customer profile, or even things like, what do I need to do to close this deal?
One of the things that I want to point out, as I'm obviously looking ahead my slides when you're talking before, but one of the things that you mentioned here within this persona is availability, since they're a key decision maker, and being able to actually tie together the persona and the customer journey to your marketing technology. And if you actually know that this particular buyer with a low availability is engaging with your company on one channel, you can trigger an action on another channel. So I think a perfect example here is that if this persona with the low availability is on the website, researching information on the website, you're able to get them to trigger a call to action, a form, or anything like that. You can trigger an activity in the CRM right away for that salesperson to make an action or a call to them relevant to the information that they're consuming. So understanding that and having everything tied together can really help you to engage the client in a timely manner.
Oh, I love that example. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
I think we have an example in the next slide of a real persona. In this particular case, we got Steve, our CEO. And one of the things you can tell right away that this is a B2B persona is that right underneath Steve, we have the company size. Because in a B2B persona, that is a big indicator of your target and what you want to do around that target. Another thing that you'll notice in a B2B persona, different than from a consumer persona, is that as you read through some of this background information, the behaviors, the motivations, the needs, and the challenges, they're very specific to business objectives and what motivates them in terms of their needs and their challenges. What they think about technology is important, especially in today's world. How they feel about innovation. How are they risk evasive? So do they like to take risk? How much risk do they want to take? Things around their finances and how they think about finances, sometimes in relationship to the investment they might be making in innovation, could be really important to that persona. And also, what are they looking at from an operational standpoint? Are they interested in creating more synergy across their businesses? Are they interested in reducing inefficiencies? So these are all the things that make up a very specific B2B persona rather than a consumer persona. Any questions about that?
I have just want to touch a point on here is that when you actually create these personas and you actually understand the individuals, what you're able to do with solutions such as like SITECORE, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is that when you know those personas, you can tag content in the system. So if you know that there's a particular challenge and you have content that's related to that, you may be able to build up to that persona to understand who they are prior to them actually converting on a form. So therefore, you can personalize that experience to make it that the calls to actions are relevant to them. So having this information, using the right technology, you can really push people along in the journey a lot quicker.
Yeah, I love that, especially if you know their behaviors or their attitudes around technology, innovation, and risk, because those can be keywords that you can use to drive your engagement.
Absolutely.
So the journey map. The journey map is just a great tool, again, that we use in experience design to map all of those experiences and touch points that your target audience is having with your brand. And this is, journey maps come in many sizes and flavors, but in general, the things that you look for in your journey map, kind of the anatomy of a journey map, is usually in the top section is your target persona, along with the scenario that you are observing for this particular journey, the goals and the expectation of the persona in this journey. It's very important to understand, where their head's at and what they're looking for. And the middle part and the heart of the journey map is where you actually track those phases and those steps in those phases, what they're thinking along the way of those phases, and what their emotional roller coaster is that they're going on along that journey. And then the bottom part of the map, especially important for a B2B journey map, is what insights did I gain from that particular point? Where's our opportunities? What are those opportunities, to spell those out? And even more important, again, with a B2B journey map, is who's the internal owner of that particular touch point? So for example, if it's a marketing message, does marketing own that? And is that where the opportunity, is to improve that experience? Is it a part of the sales funnel, and therefore maybe it maps to the actual script and there's an opportunity to maybe tighten that script? Or maybe it's a sales call itself, and it's the or the service itself, and there's an opportunity to work with the service group or the professional ops groups around that. And it's really powerful to understand the owners and the opportunities.
And I'll talk about this in a little bit here about just actually how important having integrated marketing technology is. And I think you can see it within the journey where you're looking at 6, where it goes, from point to point, but making sure that wherever the customer is engaging you, whether it be online, whether it be through email, or actually within the sales organization, or even possibly customer service, making sure that they are at the right point at that time. So the website might trigger 1, the email might trigger 2, then the website might trigger number 3, and then finally at the end, 6 or 7 might be with the sales rep itself, making sure that journey continues and the story is the same all the way across.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mike. One of the things that happens a lot, I help companies make their journey maps. And one of the things they realize is that there's a gap at that point. They don't even have anything there. Or what they do have there is terribly ineffective, and the opportunity is to fix it.
And like you said, just being able to understand gaps and fill them, it's key for account-based marketing, because then you actually can create the collateral or the action that's related to that company. So great point.
Amen.
So being able to start the process of account-based marketing can sometimes be daunting. Like, companies have come to us and asked, how do I start this? Where do I even start to look at particular companies to focus on? And really, what we say is that it can start with understanding your data. A lot of times what will happen, though, within companies, they'll ask Bob, the sales rep, what their focus is, and because Bob sold a insurance company last week, he feels that insurance is the key, and that's who they actually should sell to. Instead, actually being able to come back to data and actually understanding possibly the number of accounts in a particular vertical, number of referenceable accounts in each vertical is key with account-based marketing, because you're going to use that information to document or to provide insights to potential clients or customers. Having the average per customer each vertical for the following, such as revenue, order size, number of orders per client, gross profit, and retention rate, can really start to hone you in on what verticals make sense for your company and what criteria makes sense for your company. So you can go through a process and say, hey, any company under $100 million really doesn't provide the average order size or the revenue, and actually takes longer to try to close, or we're wasting a lot more time on that revenue size. So it's not just vertical, but it could be revenue in other areas that you can use criteria to understand where your focus is. And once you have that particular starting point, you might start with 1 or 2 verticals to build out your account-based marketing. You don't have to do them all. And then from there, you start growing the process and starting to build from there. And we have another poll question here coming up. So where do you augment your customer and campaign data? So by augmenting, what I'm talking about is not the information that you're collecting via your website or your sales rep. We're actually talking about possibly pulling in data from Dun & Bradstreet, demand base, and IP solutions, stuff like that. So question here is, are you able to do that in your CRM, through your CMS, through marketing automation platforms, or all of the above. And I'll have Amit open up the poll here for us. The poll's open, so I'll just wait a little bit here. Okay. Not seeing a lot of answers here. I'm wondering if that's because we actually didn't put none of the above. That might have been a question that we should have asked also.
Maybe we should have.
Yeah, I'm just realizing that because just overall, I think compared to the other poll answers that we've had, so a few of them are saying through the CMS, so they might be using a platform like Demandbase or something like that. But I'm going to guess that based off the former polls and this one, that might have been none of the above. So now we're going to talk about how MARTECH plays an important role within account-based marketing. Obviously, customer journeys, understanding your verticals, and creating content is key, but then tying it all together through your MARTECH is very important. So be able to actually determine your MARTECH needs. So this is not just looking at your MARTECH and utilizing it. It's understanding where there might be gaps in feature sets within the MARTECH or where there's overlap. Many companies today have their MARTECH where it's very siloed, where email does not talk to web does not talk to CRM. And an example that I provide from years ago when I was working at SITECORE is I was working with a client to understand how much MARTECH they had. They had a list of all their marketing technology. They had about 42 different platforms. I was able to go through an audit with them and figure out that about 32 of them were not needed due to overlap in features of what they're using. So it's not necessarily just all features, but it's best of need at that point. And through that, they were able to save $100,000 a year on just annual subscription fees by being able to eliminate those. And who knows how much money they saved on having to manage them. So it's really about assessing those resources, understanding them, and then building and assessing the MARTECH stack that's relevant for you. And then, again, tying everything back to the customer, to the accounts.
Hey, Mike, do you find that when you're inside these organizations that different silos or different departments or business units might be using the same or different tools and they're just not even talking to one another?
Yeah, I come across that quite often where what you'll have is you'll have different business units within the company, and what they'll believe is that the accounts are only dealing with that business unit and not others. So what they'll do is they'll have either their own CRM instance, so multiple Salesforce instances. They might have separate web properties that are actually not tying into each other, or even email campaign solutions where one business unit might be blasting the same customer another one is. And what's interesting is we'll go in and we'll actually start tying the data together and analyzing the data, showing them dashboards about how there's cross-pollination within the accounts, and able to cross-sell and upsell between the business units. So a lot of companies create business units almost as separate companies within themselves, and it can cause issues or actually even lose out on revenue. So good point. So one of the solutions that we deploy is SITECORE, and what SITECORE is a content management and marketing automation with analytics. Really gives you a full view of a customer or a potential client, and being able to target them throughout the process through web, email marketing, marketing automation, and understanding the analytics. This is an example of a profile that SITECORE builds on a site visitor. And it will collect all the data about the individual on maybe a persona that they actually match, what campaigns they've touched, what content they've consumed, and their information about them as an individual. SITECORE will collect this information on an anonymous visitor, and when they actually trigger a form, it becomes part of that profile so that you know them throughout the process. So it's really good about collecting data, but what's great about SITECORE too is it connects easily to other platforms. So if you're using a separate marketing automation platform like Marketo or Pardot, you can tie that information together so that, again, that journey is one, and then tying it to the CRM so the data is flowing through and is unified throughout all the platforms. And with SITECORE, once you've collected this data, you can start to really personalize the experience for the individual. So most websites today, some people are using personalization already, but most aren't. So you'll see here as an example, this might be a B2B2C type of company where at first they're all together. You have the individual consumer that comes to the website, and with that, they're actually engaging them with, vacation travel for the individual. Whereas in the bottom, what you'll see is the individual is more of a business-like individual, possibly a company, and now you're able to personalize it based off of either business-like accounts where you can actually build out a business account for your company so that you can save and collect points for the business travelers within your company. So very easily to do this through rules within SITECORE. So SITECORE's rules editor makes it easy for a marketer to go in and be able to edit the personalization, create a rule that says, okay, based off a particular information, personalize the content on the site. And you can personalize just, a single individual piece of content. It could be text, or it could be multiple parts within the page. And as we had talked about data augmentation, demand base, what you're able to do through IP lookup is actually capture a lot more information about that site visitor, what the company is that they're visiting from, what their revenue is, what their vertical is. So if you can actually get that information right away on the site, you can start to personalize it to that individual and to that account right away. And here's just an example. You might be able to do it based off of, vertical and then revenue. And if they hit those criteria, then you're able to pinpoint that information that is relevant in the customer journey, so they're more likely to convert. And within SITECORE, you have the marketing automation capabilities. So what you're able to do is create a journey for this individual across all the platforms that you've integrated, whether it's the website, the email solution, whether you're using SITECORE's email solution or Marketo or something, you can tie those together. And then finally also the CRM, so that you're able to tie information that you collect on the individual and push it out to the CRM so the salespeople can take action on it.
Hey, Mike, this looks like a really cool tool. So is this drag and drop?
Yeah, so it's drag and drop. It's a great solution. SITECORE just updated it in their version 9. Easy to use, very marketer friendly, and it's been really impressive with this new version.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Excuse me. So I'm going to just again reiterate making sure that you tie everything together so that the journey is easy and the technology is talking the same language to the site visitor, customer, prospect, no matter what channel they're in. So here's an example of an individual coming to the website. They fill out a form, and usually in the past with the old school marketing, they just pass this information over to the sales rep and say, hey, go call this person, not really give them a lot of insight. But now what you're able to do is tie this to your marketing automation platform. Marketing automation platform will actually be able to bring in some of the score, lead value, the information that they've touched on the site, what pages they've visited, and then pushing that over to the CRM, again, making sure that all that information is available to the sales rep. So you got their information, you got their vertical, you got their revenue, you've got the content that they've consumed, either through just the website or also through email engagement. And if you wanted to go one step further, you could actually set it up so that you could give recommendations to the sales rep within the CRM, what content to provide to the individual or what questions to ask for that individual when you reach out to them. So really we're talking about obviously business uplift and really fueling the revenue engine for your company. So it's key to manage your data across all your platforms. It's key to have a top-down and bottom-up approach within your company. So that means everybody's aligned, whether it be the executive leadership all the way down to the inside sales rep. Everything has to be aligned so that you have a single approach for success. Being able to utilize predictive analytics to be able to drive that personalization and key points within the journey. And then also creating account-specific plans. So whether it be the vertical or if you go to the high value, which we talked about, like the one-to-one, creating those account-specific plans and then engaging them across all those different platforms. And then Again, MARTECH is key here for the companies to be able to make this easy to automate and to expand. So being able to strategizing your expansion tactics, where to go next, nurturing for inbound and outbound, making sure that they align, creating some lead scoring, and reporting and dashboards have to be aligned to what you're trying to accomplish. So it's not about number of clicks on the website. It's not about email opens. It's not about MQLs. It's more about average order size, opportunities, close rates, and sales velocity, making sure your reports align to your key objectives. And then finally, I'll just leave it here for a couple stats. 91% of B2B marketers employing ABM state that are aligned with the sales team. And then 87% of companies say ABM is delivering much higher ROI than any other type of marketing, which makes sense. You're targeting the right people with the right content at the right time. And then I'll just open it up for some questions and see if any are there, and Amit might be able to provide any questions that might be having had asked or come up.
So, Mike, one question is from Jenna, and she asks, how do you measure, let me rephrase this, how do you measure the success from your ABM initiatives through dashboards? What's the technology available?
Oh, what technology or?
Technology.
Yeah, so the main one that we've been using is the Power BI to be able to create the dashboards that are relevant to your business objectives and making sure that they align with, I think I called out 4 of them that are key. And demand-based talks about this in depth, is making sure that those reports are aligned with those objectives. So revenue, opportunities, close rates, stuff like that, and not the other ones that I was talking about. But one of the solutions we use is Power BI, but we can also work within customers' business analytics tools or information tools. Good question.
Okay. Next question is from Jamie. And the question is, hang on, just let me quickly rephrase this. It's a long one. Can you give a few examples of how mid-tier companies succeed with ABM? That's I'm just rephrasing. It's a long one. But what she asks is, how can mid-sized companies succeed with ABM? I guess the question is, companies like CSC, SAP, etc. are essentially large enterprises who have had success. How can mid-tier companies succeed?
Yeah, so this can work for any company, and what you have to do is you have to understand what your focus is for your company. So I talked a little bit about account mapping and understanding your verticals. So what it allows you to do is understand where you've had success, understand what information you have, and then be able to move forward. What I think works really well for mid-tier companies is that by actually starting it with one particular vertical, you'll be able to understand the gaps very easily, whereas larger companies might not have as many, might have more content and stuff like that. It allows you to fill in the gaps within the customer journey that Sean talked about, and you can start with one vertical and then grow as the success happens. So it allows for that mid-sized firm not to have a full blown out ABM program. You can start possibly even with just one marketer and one sales rep getting on board with leadership's approval, and then proving it out and then getting the rest on board also. Good question. Thank you.
Well, we are at the either we were very good, or the audience just wants to get this webinar to end. But we've had just 2 questions now.
Well, I appreciate those 2. We'll follow up with our contact information if you want to reach out, and hopefully it's been productive and valuable for everybody on the webinar, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks everyone for participating. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Sean. Have a good day.